the covenant nation.
First of all, I want to thank God for this great opportunity to speak here today, and Pastor Podju in absentia for the great privilege to be part of this program. Thank you to the great speakers that have spoken today, and I've learned a lot. Before I begin today, I think we can all agree that entrepreneurship in Africa is not for the faint-hearted. I mean, I read all the books I could lay my hands on from the West, but nothing prepared me for the arrows that fly by day on this continent. I was told I would pray before I started. But after I started, I prayed. I fasted. I did night vigil. In the morning, I'll top up with NSPPD. What God cannot do does not exist. When I started my business initially, my business plan said I'll break even in 6 months. 3 years into the business, the only thing that was breaking was my heart. Jokes aside, if you're sitting here today or you've taken the time to watch this program, then I believe there's something deposited in you. You've refused to sit and complain. You believe there's something you have inside you to give to your nation and to Africa. That's bold, that's confidence, that's powerful, and that's what I call entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dickson Nsofor, and I'm the CEO of KORA. KORA is a truly pan-African payment infrastructure. We cater to global businesses and local businesses by providing them APIs to accept payments online, make transfers, and to convert between currencies. Today, I'm not here to speak to you about how to be successful. Rather, I'm here to share my lessons from failure. I believe we speak too much about success on this continent and so little about failure, not knowing that the hidden gems of success is buried in the lessons learned from failure. I have failed a couple of times, and today I'll be sharing my top 4 lessons in failing across multiple markets in Africa. I believe I'm highly qualified to do so because I have successfully crashed 4 of my other startups. So feel free to call me a professor in the Institute of Strategic Failure. Now let's begin. The first lesson I learned doing business in Africa is that we must rethink partnerships. We must rethink our leadership team. We must rethink our co-founder and partner relationships. We spend the rest of our life or the chunk of our youthful age worrying and thinking about who will marry. But then when we want to go into business, we think so little about it, not knowing that the decision we take could make or break our financial destiny. There's a perfect Bible verse that explains what the right co-founder or partner relationship should be, and it's taken from the book of 1 Samuel 18, 1-4. That's the relationship between Jonathan and David. Chapter 1 speaks deeply about how they are one in spirit. Chapter 3 goes further to speak about they having a covenant. Chapter 4 then goes about to speak about Jonathan giving David his armory, that's his bow, his sword, and his belt. I had a bitter experience in this particular topic. Some years ago, I co-founded a company with an American co-founder, and then we ran into a financial hurdle, and I ran back to Nigeria to get funding to bail us out. Now, he didn't understand that in Nigeria, if you're connected, it's kind of easy to beg and borrow for money. So I did that. Now, he couldn't explain how I could get that kind of funding in 3 days. And he simply thought I was the Nigerian prince, the Nigerian scammer. Of course, we had to fall out. And the problem with co-founder relationship is that it's a zero-sum game. Someone has to win for the other person to lose. I ended up winning, but it left a sour taste in my mouth. And I swore that if I would ever go into any relationship again, from a business standpoint, it would be defined based on the right principles. And I created these principles from that Bible verse. Number 1, loyalty. We live in a continent where trust is low. We don't trust each other. Why do we want to go into such a turbulent journey? that is so long without a partner that we can trust. If you look at the book of 1 Samuel 18, chapter 2, it speaks deeply about Jonathan and David having a covenant. Number 2 principle is integrity. The root word of the word integrity comes from integer, means being one. Chapter 1 of that Bible verse says, are you truly one? Says David and Jonathan were one in spirit. Are you truly one with your partner, with your co-founder, with your leadership team? And then lastly, expertise. Jonathan brought some expertise to the table. He brought his bow. He brought his sword. He brought his belt. It's very important for us on this continent that when we want to go into such relationships, we build it based on principles. In the West, they'll often say it's expertise, integrity, and loyalty. But from my little experience here, I believe it's loyalty, integrity, and expertise. This brings me to my second point, apprenticeship over being self-made. I strongly believe that the institute of mentorship and apprenticeship on this continent is slowly dying. For a lot of us in this our generation, the act of service towards leadership is something we are no more patient for. In fact, in this our generation, instant gratification takes too long. Across Africa, there's been a system that has worked. It's been here for hundreds of years. It has proven to alleviate poverty across multiple communities, especially in the eastern region where I'm from. And it's called the Igbo apprenticeship system. Unwa boy. The Unwa boy apprenticeship system is a very simple process. It simply just means that a boy leaves his family and village and cleaves to his master in the city. He wakes up in the morning serving his master in the house and in the shop. He does this consecutively for 6 years. Upon completion of his mastership program, he gets settled in terms of goods or cash, sometimes both. Now, you see this singular act was what made the Igbos pull out after the war that happened in Nigeria. It's the single reason that the wealth has been quite evenly distributed in that community. My father was an Unwa boy. All my uncles are Unwa boys. All my aunties' husbands are Unwa boys. 90% of my village are Unwa boys. You will barely find one family in my village without a multimillionaire. I say this to say that mentorship is the training ground for leaders, more so apprenticeship. I had my own fair share of story. At 14, I joined the family business. My dad is a big tire dealer in Jos. And at 17, I became the assistant manager. However, my dad was so scared that I was so weak. In fact, his nickname for me is, "How will you survive as a man?" My mom agreed with him, and then they shipped me off to Lagos to come serve my uncle. I landed in Lagos, hot afternoon. Early Monday morning, I was having a dream that I was swimming. Just to open my eyes to see that my uncle had poured a cold bucket of water on me. By 6 a.m., I jumped off the bed, ran straight, cleaned the house, and dashed out to the shop. His shop was in Alaba International Market. And then I started my apprenticeship program. I served him every single day for the next 8 years. Of course, I had to go to uni and come back. But I served him for 8 years. That was the most defining moment in my life. He taught me how to be rugged and dogged. One of the best experiences I had is something we call Osahia. It means trade front running. Now, we are selling plastic in the shop. And God bless this customer. He comes in and asks for a car. I will tell him, sit down, eat rice and stew. I'll rush to the car dealer and tell the car dealer I'm bringing my customer. And then I run back, bring the customer, sell the car to him, and I've become a plastic and a car seller at once. It was such an amazing experience. So when I launched out my own business in importation, I did quite well. And there comes my second lesson in entrepreneurship or in apprenticeship. The fact that you're a master in a particular trade does not automatically mean you're a master in the other. So when I had failed enough in trading, I decided to come into tech. I just assumed that because I had spent 10 years doing this thing, I would automatically transfer that knowledge, but it wasn't correct. So when I launched this company, I spent the next 3 years going around in a circle. I was just like a lost sheep. And then someone came and asked me, why is your startup not doing so well? Like this particular startup that is now, the biggest startup in Africa, or the latest unicorn that we have in Nigeria. I didn't understand that question at the time, but while I was reflecting, I understood the difference. The CEO of the largest fintech in Africa spent 15 to 20 years being an apprentice to a bank MD. He built systems that worked. He spent his time investing in another person's business. The latest fintech that just attained unicorn status, he spent a lot of time in one of the top fintechs in Nigeria. He gave his soul to them. Me, Dickson, Alaba, to fashion designer, to computer village, importer, exporter, cocoa water. How will I perform as good as them? There's no chance for me. Now, for our generation, I understand that you might not want to do the menial task of cleaning and serving your masters. But it's very important that we don't lose the essence of what the Igbo apprenticeship system was all about. It was a master's degree in 2 courses, mastery in character and mastery in competence. It's important for us not to lose those values. I strongly believe that governments across Africa, across multiple countries, should study the Igbo apprenticeship system, figure out more innovative ways to improve it, propagate it, because in it lies the key to poverty alleviation. And if we truly want to unlock the locked potential in the bottom of the pyramid, it's important for us to understand it. And this brings me to my 3rd point and my 3rd lesson: expectation versus reality. My favorite quote in this life is, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. There's this huge gap between the expectations we have as entrepreneurs on this continent and the realities of the continent. And my first point is around those of us with a sort of form of religion, Christians or Muslims. Please, I have a news for you. You are not special. I know you're special in God's sight, but the challenges in Africa is no respecter of anointing. I see it. Google me in the spirit realm. I've been anointed by all sorts of men of God. In fact, they've anointed here. But guess what? I still failed. In fact, I think after they anoint me, I feel faster. For those of us with faith, it's important for us to understand that the foundation of entrepreneurship and the principles are quite different from the principles of religion. Of course, some things are correlatable, but please understand they're different. My second point in expectation versus reality: expect the unthinkable in Africa. I started an importation business some years ago. I got credit from my boss in China. He gave me $200,000. The exchange rate in Nigeria was 160 naira to a dollar. 3 months down the line, exchange rate goes to 420, settles at 360. Before, I was owing 32 million. Now I'm owing 72 million. The business died on arrival. As entrepreneurs in Africa, across every single country, it's important for us to understand the risk that we have with devaluation and exchange rates. Manage your expectation. Know how to manage the expectations of the people you lead and the people that work for you. Learn to manage the expectations of the people above you that you might have taken funding from. And this brings me to my 3rd lesson on expectation versus reality. Never expect too much from any human being. I learned this the hard way. There's this simple thing that we all have in us. We use the standards we use to measure ourselves to hold other people accountable. As Africans in business, it's important for us to not do such great disservice to ourselves. I had this mentor at the time. I just graduated from uni. He even gave me an award as the most enterprising student. And then I dashed to his office to discuss this amazing idea that I had been working on. It was digitizing textbooks, putting them in a tablet, and selling them to schools. In fact, I had been anointed by one institution to do the project. Now, I called one of my friends, Woke, and I said, follow me, let's go to Kodonu. The deal is on, because the institution was about to pay me 8 million as a first tranche for the manufacturing of the tablets. We went to Cotonou. I selected a gold Range Rover. I needed to come back to Lagos to show everybody I have arrived. Fast forward, I'm still standing here today. 88 million I have not seen. Gold Range Rover didn't come. 500,000 naira security deposit that I had paid because I wanted to pay full for the car. And my friend convinced me to pay just the deposit. I didn't get it back. Worst of all, I lost my own capital because I had been anointed to go ahead to do the deal. What changed? My so-called mentor had collaborated with the person that anointed me, and the deal moved off my head. At the time, I was pained, but as I got mature, I realized that that was the simple best thing that ever happened to me in my life. Why? Because it taught me 2 lessons. A pregnant person must learn to keep their mouth shut. When you are carrying ideas that can change the world and you know how to execute it, it's important that you communicate it to only like minds. Mary and Elizabeth, the angel told Mary to go to Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's voice, her baby leaped. Who are you discussing that idea with? Did the angel tell you to do so? You only discuss ideas with people and friends that make your baby leap. I'm lucky to have one of those people here in the building, person of Somto, if he's there. The second lesson it taught me is in Africa, no matter how fine your baby bump is, it's not a baby until it's delivered and it's healthy. You don't go building skyscrapers on expected revenue and income, like me that wanted a gold Range Rover. Africa will teach you that it's not over until it's over. Lastly, in expectations versus reality, there's this crazy app fever that is going on now. Everybody wants to build an app. You see somebody come, what are you doing in InsurTech? What are you doing in PropTech? What are you doing in FinTech? It's very important for us to understand that technology and apps are not the solution. They are just enablers to the solution. If you are in insurance tech, understand insurance so well that you know how to make money in insurance without tech, and then you bring it in tech to enable the business. For us in FinTech, I only learned the hard way, and I went back to my roots to study and understand finance and figured how to use technology to improve it. And this brings me to my final lesson. This is the most psychological of all lessons that I learned, and it's knowing when to quit. There's this cancerous thinking and school of thought that has been propagated a lot by thought leaders and public speakers in the West. Quitters are losers. I beg to differ today. I believe some quitters are winners. Entrepreneurs in Africa need to understand that our infrastructural deficits and our conditions are not the same with theirs. Entrepreneurship is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It's okay to lose in some battles, provided you still stand firm in the war. I had my fair share of this. A particular year, my whole business had failed. Before it failed, I went to my mom. I took her last savings. I went to my dad. I borrowed his money. I went to every single one of my friends. I see some of them here in the building. and I took their monies as well. The sad part is my girlfriend at the time, I took her savings too. But she's my wife now, so it has cancelled. Now, for many of you that have lost money before, there are two levels of losing money. One, losing money of someone you don't care about. And two, losing money of people you truly care about, especially if you know that it's their last money. We speak so less about the psychological effect of failure on this continent. And it's important as entrepreneurs to understand that failure is something that should happen to you, not in you. Failure must not get to your heart. I mean, not this thing pumping blood. That's not your heart. A heart is a location in your mind. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Out of the abundance in your mind, the mouth speaketh. For the heart of man is desperately wicked. It's not this thing that is wicked. It's this mind that is wicked. So entrepreneurs must guard their hearts with all diligence, for out of it comes the issues of life. You must protect your mental health. You must understand that failure is transient and not permanent. Now, after I had lost all that money, that same friend again, Wuke, came back, now advising me to quit. You know what I said? Me, Mamba, we don't quit. After a series of conversations, and I decided to throw in the towel. He helped me make my first CV, and we applied to 1,000 jobs in a month because all I needed was 1 year. Now, the only yes I got was an unpaid internship in the United Nations in New York. Till today, I'm still getting, we regret to inform you. I took that internship with my heart. And it proved to be the simple and most important decision I had ever taken in my life. It got me out of the hamster wheel and put me on a new perspective of life. A lot of us entrepreneurs are knocking on doors that are painted on cement walls, confused about the illusion. Is the door going to open or not? Every time I reach that situation, I always say a particular prayer. And it's the prayer of serenity. God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can't, and the wisdom to understand the difference between both. I believe that early failure is more important than early success because it imbibes in you characters and traits that money can't buy. For instance, I picked 3 core characteristics when it happened. Number 1 is patience. I mean, I'm not talking of your kind of normal patient dog is the fattest bone. I'm talking about patience with results. As you know, everything of value oftentimes has an exponential growth. Linear growth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exponential growth is 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Everything of value has an exponential growth and requires patience with results. I learned patience. When we started Kora, first year, 0 revenue, second year, 0 revenue, third year, something like 40,000 naira revenue. But today, we employ over 200 people across 11 countries in Africa today. The second lesson I learned is empathy. When you fly so high, you forget those beneath. You don't understand the realities of those beneath. I got to see the world from the view of a cleaner, from a view of the help, from a view of a janitor. And I dare say that they are more human than a lot of us that are seated here today. And the last thing I learned was humility. See, this time I had imported this huge number of power banks, and it wasn't selling. So I walked into every single store in Computer Village to sell it. Not to sell it for cash, but on credit. Now, this one particular time, I had gone to this man's store to pay me my money. He kept me outside for 2 hours. And then I said, oh, please pay me my money now. And he said, oh yeah, come tomorrow. Then I came tomorrow. I said, come tomorrow. I came tomorrow. I come tomorrow. Before I knew it was 30 days. Then I learned a new lesson. In the West, the lender is the God. the borrower is at the mercy of the lender. In Africa, the borrower is the God. The lender is at the mercy of the borrower. So my character changed. I learned to be humble. Now, when I go to collect my debts, I first crack a joke. If the joke didn't enter, I say a prayer. Lose. Sometimes I'll go and somebody will give birth to a baby. I'll rub powder in my face. Oh, single, single. Africa will humble you. As I conclude today, I've shared the top 4 lessons that I have learned. If you follow the lessons I've learned, I'm not guaranteeing that you'll be successful. But I'm guaranteeing you one thing, that if you understand these 4 lessons, you take care of 80% of the reason as to why startups don't do well in Africa. It's important to note that the absence of failure does not mean the presence of success. I have failed. I understand failure, but I failed forward. Africa must grow entrepreneurs that are ready to rise and embrace failure as a challenge, not as an identity, but as an important tool to nation building. For as many of you that are seated here, for as many of you that are listening to me from anywhere in the world, for as many of you that are passionate and care about the transformation of this continent, from a continent of consumption to a continent of production, continent of scarcity to a continent of abundance, from a continent of darkness to a continent of life, I have 3 words for you. Embrace forward failure. Thank you.